let's move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Talking about quarterback, Jim, Trevor Lawrence gets his big time deal. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about it. How, is it too much money for the guy? Like, what are you guys thinking? Has he leaped over that hurdle of helping this team get to where they need to go? Well, it's not all his fault. A lot of it came down to like that offensive line getting injured last season and not really had an answer after that point. You look at Travis Etienne Jr., who was the key cog in that running back position, where he was kind of like the go-to guy, whether it be handing it off or giving him the ball in the open, throwing it to him. So a lot of things went badly last year for the Jaguars, a team that we kind of envisioned before the season came, whereas like, okay, well, this team pretty much, we think the Jaguars are going to win the division. Well, that didn't happen because of the lack of execution down the stretch. Trevor Lawrence is included in that too. Like he didn't help his team much either. Sometimes he turned the ball over in the most crucial of plays in certain game situations, and that cost them some games. They were ahead early and then fell to a team where a very young team in the Houston Texans for them to take the crown. Now you look for them to kind of re-up. And that's where you notice is like there was some major concerns offensive line wise. What are they going to do? They have a lot of holes. Well, they end up filling those holes with not just veteran players, but also vets that can still start for a team, that can still be key cogs. As of this year, they get at left guard Ezra Cleveland, Mitch Morse at center, and Brandon Scherf at right guard, locking up that interior offensive line, which was once a major concern, now is solidified going into training camp and into the season. Couple that with both tackles, Cam Robinson, again, guy that's kind of been injury riddled, but is coming back healthy this year. You hope that he can sustain that. Anton Harrison, a young player drafted in 23, now being given the reins to start at right tackle. Let's just wait and see how he's going to pan out. And then you look at the receiving core. That would have been another major concern this offseason, as they had a lot of holes. They had DJ Chark, who moved on in free agency, and they managed to replace him with a guy like Gabe Davis coming over from the Bills, a very tall, big size type of wide receiver that has speed. And then Christian Kirk's still there, kind of like the favorite target of Trevor Lawrence. Look for him to continue his success. And rookie draft pick this year, Brian Thomas Jr., who is not only a big wide receiver, but man, is he fast. He's a playmaking type of wide receiver, still needs to develop his route running game. But once that clicks and he gets this playbook down, he's going to be something to deal with for defenders. And I really love what they've managed to do in terms of replacing some of these receiver holes and whatnot. And then
I'm interested just to see though too, because you missed Calvin Ridley though. I mean, that's going to be a little bit of a factor here, I think, on this though. But
that's
like
where you get the playmaking ability from Brian Thomas,
right? So I'm saying if he can pan out, I mean, then they're fine. But to lose, somebody like him on top of this, I mean that's big.
I would have said yes. I would have completely agreed yes if they didn't get Gabe Davis, another proven veteran receiver who can also kind of open up some things where Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't have to be the guy this year.
Yeah.
If they weren't able to grab Gabe Davis and it was just Brian Thomas and Christian Kirk, then I'd be like, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him to be that guy. But now that you have Gabe Davis in there, Christian Kirk, you have guys that you can rely on as veteran wide receivers that can get the job done while Brian Thomas still kind of develops and figures his way out in the NFL. So I'm not as concerned of that loss as I might have been had they not gotten Gabe Davis. Okay. And then the other thing too is I know a lot of people joke about tight end and Evan Engram and how as a Giant, yes, you're right. He was injury riddled every single season for the Giants. Never end up having a healthy year for them. And kind of the Giants got fed up with it, and rightfully so, and moved on from him. Now he's with the Jaguars and had a tremendous year last year, staying healthy and just making play after play. Yeah, there were some plays where like he had a couple drops here and there, but I'll tell you right now, if he remains healthy like he did last year, he's going to be another big influential part of this offense. And it's only going to help Trevor Lawrence. It's only going to help this offense grow and develop and score points.
Yeah, I can agree with that too. He definitely has been better than when he was with the Giants,
because he's been available.
Right. Yeah. So just a very, that's funny. Then that's your litmus test here for you. Like, you're available. That's so much better than what you were before. Thanks. Like, all right, I wish I'm here.
I'm here.
You know what I mean? So I mean, it's with the bar set so low, you can always be up here. And that's where we got it here with Evan Engram.
He's always had the talent, though. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, even with the Giants, you saw the talent from time to time, but then you're like, oh, he's out again. How long is he out for? 8 weeks. What? Like, we were counting on him being available.
Right.
You know?
Right. And then the thing is with this team and this offense here, before you get into the defense, Trevor Lawrence, even does this. He was injured for a little bit, even with the legs, and that when you look at Trevor Lawrence, he's still even got that little bit of a mobility, but that was enough to kind of bring him down a little bit. But still, look at stat wise, still even performed. But in those bigger moments, like you're talking about,
right,
where he feels he is this guy that has to come here for the Jags and bring them to the promised land, bring them out of the rut to where they've been not the laughing stock of the NFL, but pretty close, where they're talking about relocating them to London. They play there so much so he's like, listen, I got to do this and put it on my shoulders, just like what Josh Allen does in Buffalo, I'd say, and making those key turnovers in terrible moments and not really having that big wide receiver. Last year, he was able to have the Calvin really get through here. Like you said, with the changes, that Gabe Davis is nice to add in there. And I like that move because, I like him as a receiver, but he hasn't been that number one, especially in Buffalo. So I'm interested in how this is going to look here with this team, if he's got a bunch of nice weapons here, but not that key number one. Like you're saying, hopefully Brian Thomas can develop into something nice here too.
He will, yeah.
But that's the thing that Trevor Lawrence has been missing here.
He has, but to a point. Like, let's look at last season where he had Calvin Ridley, right? Calvin Ridley had an amazing season with the Jaguars. Jaguars were sad to have to let him go, and they couldn't afford to keep him. But at the same time, instead of making their receiving core just Kirk and Calvin Ridley, if it did end up in a contract agreement, now they don't have just one or two. They have a guy who's also an up-and-coming number one in Brian Thomas Jr., along with a guy who's been there, done that, and Gabe Davis, who can complement extremely well Christian Kirk. It's going to alleviate the pressure on just one side or the other, where when you look at last season, obviously defenses were focused on Calvin Ridley and stopping him, and not so much Christian Kirk while he was healthy. That's the other thing too, is that team was so badly injury riddled that they lost weapons, they lost protection, they even lost Travis Etienne for sometimes. That offense was spitting and sputtering, and Trevor Lawrence was supposed to find an answer somehow still. So I don't completely blame Trevor Lawrence for last season's kind of debacle of a lackluster offense. But at the same time, you wanted to see a step in the right direction for Trevor Lawrence last year, where he wasn't going to make as many poor decisions, wasn't going to create turnovers that much, even though the offense was in no way, shape, or form ready to go. So for me, this upcoming year for the Jaguars, I need to see Trevor Lawrence take a huge step forward, because now you can't blame the offensive line. You can't blame the lack of weapons. You can't blame anything else for his lack of getting over the hump, getting some extra wins out of the deal, giving up even wins. So now it's going to be the true test. And mind you, the Jaguars just gave him a 5-year extension. So they're all in on Trevor Lawrence. And you have a guy by the name of Mac Jones who's backing him up, which I think is a great move by Jacksonville, because even if Lawrence is to get hurt, I don't think they take a huge drop off now that Mac Jones, once he gets situated, he can just kind of replace him and keep the ball rolling, kind of like a Gardner Minshew. So I think that's an excellent insurance policy for Trevor in case of injury. But again, I want to see a big step up by him. I want him to limit those mistakes and get even more completions, smarter decision making, in the moment. And then I think the Jaguars are on the way offensively.
Yeah, and if you look at their defense, Joe, I mean, this defense kind of underrated too. I think they've been right there. They're top 10 again. Trayvon Walker again, another double-digit sacks. Last season,
a guy who
really good.
Yeah, a guy who they weren't sure they were going to be able to re-sign him.
Right. And
then, on the way out almost.
Yeah, and then they even add more talent this season. Eric Armstead and more to and good talent. That's what I mean. Ronald Darby. You got these names that are just key players here. We've seen them play on other different defenses, and it's all around the ball as if they weren't good enough with just Josh Hines Allen before. Now they've got these other guys around him, so he doesn't have to do it all, but he's still going to get it done. Joe, 17.5 sacks last year. This guy, we talk about Trey Hendrickson. This guy has got to probably be one of the other guys I think that is totally underrated, doesn't get talked about enough just because he is there in Jacksonville.
I mean, I still think he gets his respect. He does get talked about once in a while because formerly Josh Allen, now Josh Hines Allen.
Who are they talking about?
Giving respect to both sides of the family, which that's pretty cool, I think. Guys just absolutely gifted, and the corner piece of this defense, because I think if they let Josh Allen let him go and didn't give him the money that he was required to stay, this could have been a whole other issue because he's such an impactful pass rusher in this league, one of the better defensive ends that you could ever ask for. And then coupling him up, like you mentioned, Eric Armstead coming over from the Niners, which honestly, I'm kind of surprised of where Eric Armstead landed with the Jaguars. I thought he might go elsewhere, but man, you team him up also with the likes of Roy Robertson Harris, who's made his name known in Chicago. And a guy who I think now that they've assembled this defensive line this year with these 2 D tackles and how good they are, now you're looking at a very star-studded front 7 for the Jaguars, where they don't really miss much. You look at their linebackers, Devin Lloyd, who's been there since 22, has made a name for himself there. Very solid player. I don't even know how to pronounce this dude's name, but Olakun, I'm going to say, from Atlanta, another kind of underrated type of linebacker who's going to fit very well with this defensive scheme. My only concern, if I had any for this defense, is on the back end. Ronald Darby, kind of a journeyman corner. He worked extremely well with the Patriots, then formerly with the Ravens. I'm kind of concerned with him being out on an island once in a while. And I'm not really sure if he's going to be the answer for them long term. But you got other younger guys on the back end with the safeties, and Antonio Johnson and Andre Sisco, guys that have proven to the Jaguars that they are the next up-and-coming youth at that safety position, which I'm comfortable there. Then you look at the other cornerback spot, Tyson Campbell, a guy who played well, but I'm not 100% sure with both these outside corners how well they're going to do going forward. That's my only real concern. Interesting enough, the Jaguars also made another addition at nickel corner, which is interesting because Darnell Savage from the Packers was their safety, is now going to come down into that nickel position. And it's not like he can't play. He's an amazing athlete. Also was seen coming out of the draft when he was draftable that he could play outside corner or safety or nickel. Jaguars are going to utilize him as a nickel corner to kind of lock down that slot a wide receiver. So I'm very intrigued on Darnell Savage. I think that's going to pay huge dividends for this defense. But as far as your outside corners, to me, they're still not ironclad for me. And that's pretty much the only weakness that I could kind of foresee for the Jaguars. I think they'll do fine because obviously you have a lot of talent surrounding them where maybe you can camouflage them and help them out from time to time. But that would probably be my only kind of concern coming into this year. But other than that, yet again, in this division, another team that is very solidly built, and they're looking to come back now that they're healthy and try to make waves.
Make another push again. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these 2 boxes.